The Bible teaches that we are transformed by the renewing of our mind, but that's not the only thing it says that transforms us. 2 Corinthians 3:18 says, beholding him, we are being transformed. Beholding him, we are being transformed. And to be fair, that verse actually is translated a little bit different ways in different versions. I believe that's the way the ESV has it, and very legitimate translation of that verse. But someone wrote a book based on that verse that says, we become what we behold. That when we look at God, we become more godly. When we look at Christ, we become more Christ-like. We become what we behold. Beholding him, we are being transformed. There is something about worship. There is something about adoring him. There's something about looking into the face of God that makes us more like God. And a part of what we want to do, if we want to learn to live transformed lives, is we want to learn to spend time privately and corporately beholding him. A lot of controversy these days about music style and so on, and to me the great question is that is sometimes lost in that is not what is the best music style, but what music tunes my heart to sing his praise, what music causes me to think great thoughts about God, because this is what we want to do. Curious thing about this is taught in Scripture, but it's also been revealed in modern science. For example, they have found that couples, if you take a random group of men and women that are married to each other, but we just mix up their pictures, individual pictures, and you find pictures of them, say, when they graduated from high school, and then you ask people to pair them up. Who do you think got married to who? And people will have a hard time doing that. But if you wait 50 years and you take pictures of those same people 50 years later, people are much more likely to be able to figure out who belongs to who. There is something about beholding one another, that when a man and a woman do that, they come to look like one another. By laughing at the same jokes and crying over the same heartaches, they come to actually shape their face into the same image. And in a similar way, when we spend time beholding and worshiping and loving God, it shapes us into the face of God. Another example of that real quickly is the idea of tennis. Tennis, like a lot of sports, pretty complicated sport. You've got a forehand and a backhand, overhead and a serve and volley and so tweener, if you want to count that one. And then each one of those, we'll just talk about a forehand. We've got the forehand, we've got the grip that we got to have, and we've got the stance that I have. We do this little split step as we begin. There's what they call a unit turn, where you turn your whole body. And then when you move your hand back, you want your hand to come back like this, not like this. There's a tendency for people to do that. You want it to come back like a loop and not a pendulum. There's this racket drop part of it. I don't know if you can see that. I'm not in my hand, but there's this racket drop where the racket will drop real low. And then there's this what they call a doorknob turn. And anyway, there's someone like this. And there's about 12 parts of hitting a forehand correctly. And that's just the forehand. But tennis teachers have discovered that if they will just go out on the court and they will say, now just watch me hit the ball for about a dozen times. Watch me hit a clean forehand a dozen times. And then they ask people to just say, do what you saw me doing. They will do it with relative effectiveness. There's another experiment done where the tennis teacher said, I want you to pretend like you're in a movie and you're playing Roger Federer. And the camera is trained on you, but it doesn't see where the ball is going. So you don't really care where the ball is going. All you care about is trying to look like Roger Federer when he hits the tennis ball. And again, they found that by beholding Roger Federer, tennis players could become a little bit more like Roger Federer. And you can become a little bit more like Christ if you spend time beholding him. And so I would encourage you to do what I did this morning. I don't do it every single day, but as I do this video, I'm reminded I need to do it more often than I do. It's just spend a little time getting out my phone and putting on some worship music. And in the privacy of my time alone with God, just spend a little time adoring him. There's actually 4 or 5 different ways you can spend. It doesn't have to be music, but that's one of the best ways for many of us, I think. But you spend some time adoring him through music. You might do it by thinking about the names of God. You might worship him by thinking about the attributes of God, that he is omniscient and that he is all powerful, and so on and so on. But you might spend some time, the names of God, the attributes of God, spend some time in with music, and then just simple and direct, telling God how wonderful that you think he is. And he is a wonderful God. And the Bible teaches that if you do this, if you behold him, you will become more like him.